Okay, in this video, we're going to find the sinusoidal function equation from the graph. So the trick is, or the tips is work backward. Which means in general, we're trying to find A, B, C, D. In this case, we switch, finding D, C, B, A, which means we're starting from the midline. Then we will try to find the phase shifts. The next is the period. The last is the amplitude. So the midline is C, which is D, which is Y equals to D. That would be the midline. C, the phase shift, is equal to C divided by B. So this one is a little bit hard because without the period, you won't be able to find the C after you read the graph. So maybe in this case, we should do midline, D, B, C, A. B is the period. Period, how do I find B? Period is equal to 2 pi divided by absolute value of B. Amplitude is the absolute value of A, or half of the max minus the minimum. That also gives you the A. Sometimes you need to consider whether the graph today shift upside down or not. If it shift upside down, we need to put a negative to the whole function. Okay, now example, let me give you a graph. Okay, I paused the video and draw you the graph. Oh, here's the graph. So we should start with the midline. Where do you think where's the midline is? Well, the midline also half of the lowest point to the highest point. So the lowest point is 0, the highest point is 1. So that means the midline is going to be in here, which is 1/2. So midline is y equals to 1/2. So that means the letter D is equals to 1/2. Now the next is phase shift. That one is harder. Let's find the period first. So by observing that, where's the period? So the period you can find when it's ups. How can I rewind that? Let me draw this back. So here, so we can look at the highest point to the highest point. So highest point to highest point, or the lowest point to the lowest point. That's when they repeat, right? Well, if we're starting with the lowest point, we got what? From 0 to 2 pi. So that means the period is 2 pi. Or if we look for the highest point to the highest point with a pi to 3 pi. So the period is still 2 pi. So that means the period is 2 pi. And we know that period is equal to 2 pi divided by B, and the period is equal to 2 pi. So that means 2 pi divided by B is equal to 2 pi. So solve that. I got B is equal to 1. Now, the next is the shift. Phase shift. The phase shift is where does the function start? Well, it starts from the 0. It didn't really change. So maybe there is no shift. Or maybe it depends if you see this as a cosine function or sine function. If I see this as a, let's pick one. Let's say this, I think this is a sine function. Well, now if we assume that this is a sine function, what happened? If this is a sine function, we know that the sine function starts from the midline. So that means, let me label the starting point. The starting point of the graph should be here. So this is what? this is half pi. So that means usually the sine function starts at 0, 0, right? But now it starts at half pi. So that means the phase is shift half pi to the what? To the right. So that means our C is equals to, oh, sorry, I should show the steps. Our phase shift is equals to C divided by B, right? And our C is equals to, we don't know. We don't know what they equals to. That's what we're trying to find now. Over B we just found it from the previous step is equal to 1, and our phase, they shift 1/2 pi, and now we can solve for C. C is equals to 1/2 pi, because you can also see from the graph, they shift 1/2. If it's a sine function, let's assume that, let's work on that as a sine function. Okay, well, what's next? Next is the amplitude. Amplitude is the maximum to the midpoint, or the midpoint to the minimum. So by observing, we got that, hey, this part is the phase, or the lowest point to the midpoint, which is this part, also is the, not the phase, the amplitude. So that means our A is equal to 1/2. Now we have all the letters that we need. Now we can write down the sine function. Y equals to A is 1/2 sine x. B is equals to 1. So we don't need to do anything about that. And then the phase shift is equals to 1/2 pi. And then D is a positive 1/2. So that's the function. So earlier we assumed that this is sine function. Let's say, what if this is a cosine function? That's a different way to solve the problem. They're both correct. So everything should look the same except for the phase shift. We have the same midnight even though it's a cosine function. Let me change the color of pen. Now, if this is a cosine function, the midnight are still y equals to 1/2. The period still 2 pi, and when you solve that, we have a period is 2 pi divided by b equals to 2 pi. That gives you the same b, which is equal to 1. Now, phase shift, we discussed that later. Amplitude are the same, equals to 1/2. Now is the phase shift. The phase shift is C. The starting point of a cosine function is starting from the top. So that means this guy should be the starting point of a cosine function, right? Originally, the starting point is starting from here, the 0. Now it's starting at pi. So that means it shifts to the right pi units, right? So that means they shift to the right pi. So when we know that the shift is equal to C divided by B, where our B is equal to 1, so that means solve that, we got our C is equal to pi. So together, y is equal to 1/2 cosine x minus pi plus 1/2. Is there any different way to solve this problem? The answer is yes. Okay, the midnight period and amplitude, they're the same. Now, again, the phase shift. Let's say, I don't think that's the starting point. I still think the 0 is the starting point. Now, I'm going to use a different color of pen. let's use the green one. I still think this is the starting point. Well, this is a cosine function. If this is a cosine function, they start with 0, that's okay. But usually the cosine function starts on the top, right? So what happened to this one is if it starts in the bottom. That means they flip upside down. Well, if the starting point is at 0, 0, that means there's no shifting from the cosine function, right? So that means the third way to solve it is the midline, still y equals to 1/2, and then the period, we found that still 2 pi, so that means our b still equals to 1, amplitude, a is still 1/2, but the phase didn't shift, so that means c equals to, oh, let's count that, it's equals to what? C should equal to 0 because it didn't shift. But what happened is the function is flip upside down. So that means the answer for this should be a is equal to 1/2, and then we have a cosine b is equal to 1. So that gives you an x. Since the phase doesn't shift, we add a 0 to it. That means still give you 0, and then add 1/2. But the function is upside down. That means you need to take a negative to the whole function, not just from the front. If you just put a negative to here, please check the answer in your decimal, see what happened, versus this one. Show me in your decimal, see if you just put a negative in front of the 1/2 versus you put it in front of the whole function. Which gives you the correct function aligned with this graph. Check it by yourself and think about that why. Okay, so that gives you 1/2 cosine x minus 1/2. This one is correct, but tell me why. Because when you take in the symmetry, you want to take the whole function so that they can have the flip. Instead of flipping just the first term, it won't help. You want to flip the whole function. So that's why we want to take the negative to the whole function. That's why you need to put the parenthesis from the whole one and then simplify it. So now as you can see, given you a graph, you may end up with 3 solutions. But check this in the decimal, you will notice that all these 3 are the same function. All the 9 are overlapping. So that means we will have a multiple answer for each questions. Now let's do another exercise. I'm going to pause the video and draw the graph. Okay, they shift right to the 1. And we know that the phase shift is equals to c over b. And that would b is equals to pi over 3. So that means c divided by pi over 3 gives us a 1. So then we can solve for c is equals to pi over 3. Oh, sorry, it blocked. Okay, we got everything that we need. We have y equals to our a, which is 2 times cosine x. B, we solve it, is pi over 3 times x. C is pi over 3. And the midline is, they shift down, right, from 0 to 1. So that means the midline is -1.